I'm utilizing samples in creative ways, taking loops and putting them in the sampler, but chopping them to fit in our project. We can have a little more fun with this if we... BandLab has a huge variety of royalty-free sounds that you can use today to start making music. That's loops, one-shots from some actually amazing artists and across a lot of different genres. Today we're going to be talking about how you can utilize that free library of royalty-free sounds in your music. Let's jump in. Alright, so probably the easiest way to get working with BandLab's library of royalty-free sounds is opening a new project, selecting BandLab Sounds, and let's look for a rhythmic loop to give us a groove to get our track started. Right away, you can see there's tons of packs available, and there's certain ways you can search. You can apply different filters by instruments, genre, character, and BPM. I'll try searching for a specific kind of loop, a shaker loop. So after I type shaker, I'll change the filterings to only show me loops, and let's show all the results. And currently we have all these packs that might contain shaker loops. We can also search by samples here. If we find a sample that we like, we can actually view the pack that the sample came from and probably find some similar kinds of samples. And right here, you can see that we found a few more shaker loops in this pack. So I'm going to grab this one, Shaker 96 BPM Oldie, and add it to my project. Starting with a top-end percussion sample is a great way to start your track to get a groove going and leave space for you to be able to write your own drums, which we're going to do later. Now I think I already have a tempo in mind, and this is a little faster than I'd like to be. So I'm going to go ahead and lower the tempo on my project, maybe down to something like 84 beats per minute. So it's just a little bit slower. And one way we can sort of start to make samples our own is to change certain things about it. So if I transpose this sample, even by just a couple semitones down, it'll give it a slightly more lo-fi sound, which I think is what I'm going for. And then also, we can start to add effects to that sound. I think I'll do some basic filtering with some EQ, take out the low end, shave off a bit of the high end. And next, maybe I'll even add a little bit of delay, which will actually enhance the groove of the shakers and make it sound like there's some more shaker hits happening, depending on what rhythm I choose. And I'll dial that in just subtly enough. So that might not seem like much to start, but this is all in the spirit of using these free royalty-free sounds in BandLab and making them your own. Because remember, all BandLab users have access to these sounds. So what can we do to just tweak these sounds a little bit to make them a little more customized to our track? But this isn't sounding like too much yet, so let's repeat that process. This time, let's find something more harmonic or melodic. I think choosing some chords next will go a long way. So let's just look up some keys. And once again, I'm presented with all these different packs. And if we filter those packs by genre, and I look specifically for something like lo-fi, remember that I'm looking for loops also, and then I can look at the results and what samples fit that criteria. There's so much to choose from, but I've actually found this piano sample that I quite like that I'm going to add to my project. Now, similarly to the shaker loop, I want to darken the sound of this piano using transposition. Now, I could transpose this sample just like I did to the shakers, but since this is our first sound with any harmonic or melodic content in it, what BandLab has done is it's automatically detected the key of that sample, which is D major. And the BandLab app is actually smart enough to transpose samples into the key you want it in. So instead of transposing the sample directly, just for this time, I'm going to go ahead and change the key of the actual project, which will in turn transpose my sample. I'll show you what I mean. Let's transpose this down to A major, for instance. So by transposing the full project, it's automatically transposed my sample. You can see we've gone down 5 semitones. So this is a really important step for the first piece of harmonic or melodic content that you add to your project. Make your first key or transposition adjustment in the project key settings. It will make your life much easier, as we'll see in a bit when we start to add more sounds on top of this. Let's once again repeat the process of making this sound a little bit more our own by adding effects. There's so many pre-made effects chains that you could use, like this one called Ambient Wind. Let's hear what that sounds like on this piano. And within that effects chain, we have a reverb, a compressor, and a little bit of gain. I'm actually going to pull back on that gain a little bit. I think it's adding a bit too much, but I do like the warmth and the width of that really long reverb. I'll go ahead and turn down the size a little bit, and I might want to add another effect in here as well. Just a bit of filtering with the visual EQ once again. I'm going to sweep out some of those really low frequencies, scoop out a little mids, and just raise the highs a bit. It's just a little bit moodier, and in fact, now that I've got this moody air on top of the keys, I'm going to go ahead and add some reverb on top of this shaker as well, so that it kind of sounds like everything is in the same space. Of course, Space Maker is great for that. Just a subtle amount. So here we've utilized 2 royalty-free loops, but we've taken some steps to make them our own by transposing them to a different key as well as adding effects on top of them. Now let's start to use royalty-free samples that we can sequence and start to build up our own musical ideas. So for that, I'm going to add a sampler. And with sampler, we get a couple different options. There are pre-made sampler kits, and then there's an option to build from scratch. Let's build from scratch so we can get a full understanding of what sampler is all about. You can see a grid here of 16 pads. Each one of those pads can hold a sample. We can either record in, which we'll do in just a minute, or we can add in a free sound from BandLab's library. So let's browse samples. And similarly to before, I can search for the specific kind of sample that I'd like. I searched kick. Of course, there are many different kinds of kicks. Here, we're not looking for loops. We're looking for one-shots specifically. And I'll once again use genre as a filter because that's very, very helpful. I don't think we want any metal kicks or EDM kicks in this kind of chill lo-fi beat. So now that I've searched and filtered, there's still 500 options here. And you could spend your whole day trying to choose a single kick sample, but I'm going to try to pick one right from this first page, this Lo-Fi Samurai kick. Now, that sample is loaded here. Before we lay down a kick pattern, let's actually repeat that process once more. This time we'll add a snare. And conveniently, it's kept my filters from earlier. I really like the sound of that clap, but you can hear that it has a second hit in it. Really interesting. And there's ways we can change that. So I'm going to use the pencil tool to edit this sample. And I think I see that that clap comes in a little further into the sample. So let's go ahead and crop. And as you've noticed, we've just entered in this totally new menu here where we can change things, including the crop of a sound. We can also do some filtering as well with the tone knob. Focus more on the high end of the sample or a more rolled off low end. I want that to be nice and bright. And here's where you can also transpose samples in the drum kit. I might make this kick a little bit lower so we get more of a thud, and then I might bring the tone down as well. Crucial to getting a nice wide sounding mix, we also have panning options here, so I'll pan this clap just slightly to the right so we get some width from that. And now that we've got a kick and snare, I'll try to record a drum pattern over these loops. Almost the same principle with these one-shots here where we tweak them slightly to make them our own, but with one-shots we can of course make our own pattern. Before we move on from this sampler, I'm going to show you how easy it is to record into the sampler by recording this little frog instrument. I'm going to hit record, slide up to lock it. We've got a few hits there as well as me talking. Record, slide up to lock it. We definitely don't want that, but let's go ahead and hit the edit button, crop in on one of these hits. And you can hear that it doesn't quite play the whole sample because we're in gate mode. So the sample only plays for as long as I hold that pad down. Let's just change that to one shot for this sample. But now we can do a little bit of cleanup with the editing we showed before. We can just bring the tone up to sweep out any of those low room tone frequencies. We can also do a little bit of fade in with the attack to make sure it's just natural the way we cropped the sample. Pan it a little to the left since our snare is panned to the right. That'll give us a nice space. And I'll probably bring the volume all a little bit down. That'll do. And you know, now that I'm hearing it in context, I'm going to go ahead and bring the pitch. Just a simple idea, but good enough for our purposes here. Now let's go ahead and combine these concepts by adding a new sampler and taking loops and putting them in the sampler, but chopping them to fit in our project. So I'm going to go ahead and add a sound from the library. And there is actually a vocal pack that I really like called Vintage Vocal Cuts, which I think will work for this track really well. It's these really cool,
baby, you can have all of me, all of me,
very moody vocal sounds, but I'm going to add that first sample to my sampler.
Baby, you can have all of me, all of me.
And it sounds like BandLab has already transposed that sample to fit in our key. Now, I don't want that full sample. I think I just want that last all of me phrase.
All of me, all of me.
Cool. And let's use our editing tools from before. Use attack to fade in that sample a little bit more.
All of me, all of me.
Filter it with tone.
All of me, all of me.
And I think we'll certainly need some effects here. Let's go ahead and add some effects. Without a doubt, we will add some delay. Let's go with de-delay. Some EQing. And some reverb on top. And actually what I'm realizing is when I was previewing this sample, it was playing me a transposed version that fit well in my song, but when I imported it into sampler, I don't believe it properly transposed it. So let's use our ears. That fits, plus one semitone. I really like that. Now from the edit menu, I'll duplicate this sample onto another pad, and I think we could have a little more fun with this if we reverse the sample. Make that nice and short. And if we got one more, I'll go ahead and duplicate that sample over again. And let's see if we can just find a single. I like making these sort of like indistinguishable vocal phrases that... Ooh, that almost sounds like a word. And let's actually see if there's one more sample from this pack that we can use. Just a single A, that'll do. Add that here. Go into our transposition and let's transpose that exactly the same, one semitone. Or more, this one. There we go. Here we go, nice and dark and floaty. Let's record that. Cool enough for now, I think that works, but as you can see, we can take these samples and just by doing some really simple editing, just by cropping in on certain words, using reverse, go ahead and changing the tone of the sample, transposing it to fit in our track, we take this royalty-free sound that anybody could use and probably use it a little differently than others might be. That is kind of like the joy of sampling in my mind, is everybody can use the same source material and hopefully come up with something unique and original. Finally, I found one more top line melody loop that I think will go quite well with this track. Let's bring that in here. In the spirit of just adding a little more originality to that pre-used sample, we'll follow the model of adding effects, EQ, get a lot of that low end out of there, followed by some delay. And I think what we have now is a collection of sounds that all came from BandLab's royalty-free library, besides my little frog, that maybe nobody else has combined together, at least not in this way. And then we've also taken some time to process these samples to make them our own, to come up with something a little more original. Usually in my music making process, I'm utilizing samples in creative ways like this, and this is a great way for you to start filling out your tracks as you're building up your musical skills. So take advantage of the vast library of free samples available on BandLab Sounds. Combine different loops, utilize the sampler to completely transform them, and start making music today. If you had any questions, please let us know down in the comments. My name is Tatro, here with BandLab. Have a good one.